Nah. Okay. Well, it's just first stream, but yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna read one reality. Yeah. So this is part of Vikings chapter 2 essentially, and what you guys missed is Kettle, like the main character, the person who gets like isekai'd, has now been uh, basically merged with Oniris, the boy from the first chapter. Um, it was really good. The merge scene was really really cool. And now essentially what's happened is Kettle is in Oniris's body, and Oniris is kind of just like dealing with that, but they're still kind of present in their brain. So that's essentially what's happening. Yeah. So here we go. I'm gonna read this, and I'm not gonna be distracted by chat. Sorry, I gotta pause this music. It's yeah. One reality. They had woken up at the crack of dawn. Kettle's soul wanted to complain, but he knew such was the life of farm workers. Rise with the sun and dull your brain, sleep with the moon and ignore the pain. We are not dull, protested Oniris, put off by the squatter's attitude. There was no breakfast, and their stomach grumbled as they pulled weed after weed, filling the basket. Kid, how are we struggling with this? It's hard work. It's hard work, all right. There was no warm sun, and their bodies shivered as they sank their hands into the mud, harvesting rocks. At least you're already used to hardship. What's that supposed to mean? Oh, I apologize. I see what this is. Okay. This is a double thought here, right? Kid, how are we struggling with this? It's hard work. Right, okay. Sorry, back to the reading. They went home for an early lunch, leaving their father and brother in the fields. Kettle's eyes wandered around, looking at the depressing neck of the woods. This is why you wanted to have an adventure, isn't it? I wanted to dream, but after seeing your memories, this is not all that bad. They laughed at themselves as their small feet struggled to walk through the muddy path. Small patches of snow were still holding out, hiding in the shadows. In the corners, the sun didn't caress. How much have you seen? Enough to feel sorry for you, mister. Don't feel sorry for me, I'm still alive. Feel sorry for all those I couldn't save. The young boy didn't have a reply to that, as he felt the young boy diving into his memories, staying clear of what he could feel were the most traumatic ones. Looking up, he could see a large flock of birds flying overhead, their distant cries bringing life back to their surroundings. Like Falkir? They stopped walking, for that name stabbed both their hearts, and the young boy suffered in a manner he couldn't have known. No, Oniris, she was a hero. She died a hero. She still waits for me to walk through the doors of Valhalla to be reunited. As he spoke, the fresh wounds, merely 17 years old, tore themselves open. They stopped walking and leaned back against the nearby low rock wall. And why do we feel like this? Asked the truly innocent soul of the two. Because I am a coward. I didn't dare to return her love. Because you put the world first. They shook their head in unison for wholly different reasons. As much as I want to be happy, Oniris, there is no happiness to be had for me, for us. Not once you understand the weight we carry. Mister, everyone deserves to be happy. There are many things I deserve, none will be afforded to me. Their minds dived into the depths of his memories, watching the families they had built and lost. They held their sons and daughters and watched them perish. The young boy wanted to cry, but Kettle didn't let their body do so. That is the destiny you agreed with when you said you wanted to be a hero. Who rescues the rescuer? Who stands above the one who stands atop the world? That is our burden, Orneris. We are the last resort of this world. If we fail, none will undo our mistakes. They silently watched as a dormant volcano came back to life, billowing smoke. They watched as from within the depths of the earth an obsidian serpent woke from its slumber and rose out of the volcano and into the skies, turning the world gray. What is that? Oniris asked, watching the serpent's body hide in the cloud, its shining black belly occasionally breaking through the cover to send panic into the onlooking masses. Doom, Armageddon, Ragnarok. There are many words you can use to describe the end of the world. Pick one. because this is what killed this world. Do you think that there was anyone who could have stopped it? No, the boy's monosyllabic answer took a while to arrive, but Kettle knew the boy was looking through the memories of that world. That is why I haven't run away yet. That is why I asked you if you wanted to come back home. We are still too young to fight in earnest. The least I could afford you was your mother's love, your sister's love. It's our mother, our sister. I am you, remember? That was a lie. I thought you would simply stop being as soon as it happened. I know, I have your memories, your knowledge. They watched as a trio of soldiers carrying spears walked past them, chatting as they went. They spared him a single glance and a wave of their hands, which he returned. Aren't you angry at me, at the voice, at anything? The voice asked me if I wanted to save the world. The young boy's thoughts trailed off as he rewatched the obsidian serpent once more. I don't want my world to end up like that. I don't want Sis to die like that, like them. Don't you care that it will be the end of you? If it is the end, it's still better than ending up as you, isn't it? I've already changed. Kettle's soul didn't have a reply to that. He had been had by a mere 8-year-old boy. He knew the boy hadn't only gazed at his memories, but also his feelings, his thoughts, his dreams, his wishes, and his worst nightmares. He could feel the boy's soul slowly shifting, altering, the contours of themselves ever so slowly taking on the same shape. He briefly wondered if carving him some toys and letting him take control would make him feel better, if even for a moment. And don't bother making me toys. You already denied me the innocence of childhood the moment I saw a world die, and then I saw another 1,000. The boy's striking rebuke at his unspoken thought told him how quickly the boy was changing. What do you want to do then? Also, please don't reply before I even say anything. It's actually creepy. We are two human souls, not mind-reading eldritch horrors. They got up and started walking back home, their blue eyes trying to spot colors in the sea of brown shades around them. Fine, but don't go thinking anything rude about Mom or Sis, or I'll make you stumble through the mud every day until I'm gone. I guess we should start training, shouldn't we? You do realize training is going to make us even more tired, right? And with Dad around, we'll have to be sneaky about it. The world comes first, doesn't it? Let's do it for Sis. As one, Kettle and Oneirus looked at the bowl of cheese-flavored porridge they found waiting for them at home in disappointment. Maybe we should find more to eat before training. We might actually starve ourselves between that and working the fields. Don't suppose you know how to forage safely around here. I don't know how to forage. One of the soldiers once said half the forest will kill you with poison and the other half will either eat you or beat you. Effing brilliant, eh? Mom, can I have seconds? I'm still hungry. They decided to ask, knowing full well it wouldn't work, but at least they tried. I know you're growing, but your father and brother need that to work. Sorry, baby. Think anyone at the village will buy toys if I carve some? I don't know. I've only been to the village twice when I was sick. I know some there are free men. Well, let's go and ask them. We won't save the world on an empty stomach. Okay, so I'm still going to read the intermission, but let's pause there. So that, I'm going to be honest, was a little confusing for me to read. I just want to see where you guys are at on the chat here. Yeah, that's a good call, Creamy. It does. I like this is so difficult, Viking, because the writing specifically the writing and how you choose to put together your sentences is very talented. And your imagery is super awesome. It always usually is. However, I am struggling. I struggle to read this. Yeah. I don't know. I think I struggle to discern the voices, um, and I think you could probably put the two separate inner dialogues on different lines, like having them on the same line. makes it hard. Maybe if you completely change the formatting. Yeah, yeah, Karina, that's true. That's not a bad example. Um, the scene with the serpent, the obsidian serpent, the imagery was amazing, but I was confused as to what we were actually looking back on. Their minds dived into the depths of those memories, watching families they lost. I felt a little confused. Like I know that was a memory that they were watching, um, but the way that I interpreted it was that it was happening, and I had to kind of realize that it wasn't because it was a memory. Is there anything over? Yeah, conceptually, there's something I don't like about this, and I'm trying to figure out exactly how it is. I think I think it's too much. Like I think you have too many thoughts happening. Like this seems like a long scene for like just a conversation to happen between the two kid where between the kid and Kettle, and I almost wanted like I wanted the kid to shut up a little bit. Like I'd rather have more of because it's Kettle controlling the boy, right? I just think maybe having the conversation between Kettle and Oneris, like there needs to be less. That's my interpretation. Kettle is controlling the body, like, and I think that's another point is that Kettle's controlling the body, and he is the kid, but the kid's soul is inside of him, right? But I think there's too much of the kid. What do you guys think? This is a very difficult concept to pull off. Um, because well for obvious reasons, right? You have two different souls in a single body, so to be able to actually pull it off uh, is hard, and I know you can do it. um, and I think this just is a really good example of how it can be confusing if it's not very clear and straightforward. I want to show them talking it out in the beginning and slowly talking less and less as they become on. Okay, right. So context here is, I guess, is important because you want to. So later on in like chapter 7, he'll be talking less and less, right? Because Kettle will be like essentially absorbing him into himself. Yeah, I think I would agree with Strugo. Chapter 7 is the final chapter, actually, and you spoiled yourself. But yeah. Okay. So it makes sense. I see where you're going with it, but it still feels like too much. I don't like, and like that's just me as a reader. Like the writing is good, but as a reader, it felt very confusing. At least that's my feedback just from like trying to read it out loud and see. Um, it just yeah, I don't know. That's my initial response. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Like I don't know if you want Kettle and Oneris to switch control. I think we need less of Oneris. Like this story is about Kettle, right? Like I don't really care about Oneris. I get it that he's a kid and he's trying to fight with his soul. But like is it not like 80% Kettle, 20% Oneris? Or is it 50-50 split? 50-50 right now in the beginning. Okay, so then there has to be something different because right now discerning between Kettle and Oneirus is difficult, and it's not just formatting wise. It's almost as if their voice is too similar. Like your writing voice as you're writing. Like Kettle is a essentially an immortal being who's lived thousands of years and has done this kind of thing before, whereas Oneirus is an 8-year old kid. How would an 8-year old kid be speaking right now? Like I need to be able to discern it more. Like imagine you were writing this without any dialogue tags period. I should be able to know who's speaking just based off of them. Right? Like for example here, how much have you seen? Enough to feel sorry for you, mister. I know that this second line here is Oneirus because of this word mister, but that's about it. Right here, this is what you wanted to have an event. So this is why you wanted to have an adventure, isn't it? I wanted to dream, but after seeing your memories, this is not all that bad. Okay. When I read this, I have to consciously make an effort to think that the second part, I wanted to dream, but after seeing your memories, is Oneirus. This voice sounds way too similar. Do you get what I'm saying? 8-year-old has direct access to the memories of Eldritch Beating. He has the direct access to his memories, but that doesn't mean he speaks differently, right? Edit and clarify the voices. I think there just needs to be more discernment. If you want to keep the same level of speaking, that's fine, because I get what you're trying to do. 50-50 now, then in a few chapters 60-40, and a few more chapters 70-30, and so on to the point where Oneirus gets absorbed. That's a really cool concept, and it's something that if you can pull it off, it's probably going to be like very satisfying and rewarding. However, as a reader who just read this for the first time, it was confusing. And I think if it's confusing, you're hurting yourself. We know a little bit about Oneirus in the previous chapter that you guys didn't get to experience. Actually, no, I did read the previous chapter on my own. If you guys remember, the boy, this was about last week. He's a boy who gets beaten by his dad. He works in the farm. He has an older brother. But like again, this is a 8-year-old. Like this is obviously he has access to this eldritch immortal being's memories. But at the end of the day, he's 8. And an 8-year-old is going to experience things differently. He's probably still going to be a little freaked out. He's probably going to talk differently. His grammar isn't going to be great. He might interpret things a little differently as well. Yes. 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 Yep. I was gonna Google something about isekai, but never mind. Anyways, he doesn't feel 8 in chapter 2. I would agree. He doesn't. Well, it's good. No, it's good. It's good to like get the feedback, right? Because if you can manage to pull this whole concept off as a whole, I think it'll be great. Highlight the elders part. Yeah. Okay, I am going to read um, intermission example. So, Viking, this intermission example, this is something that you're going to include in between chapters, right? Or at the start of a chapter, kind of like how chapters have like quotes or maybe like a stat sheet at the front of their chapter or like a cart like a TV show has like a little animation in between scenes. Lore break. Yeah. Between chapters of lore. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna read this then, and then we'll go on to Jeffrey's if Jay is still, actually I think it was Jay, right? If Jay's still here, I'll read her stuff next. It is technically Jay or Cat. Anyways, okay, here we go. The Age of Rebellion. Eons had passed since the gods began working with their will upon the world, but they were not fools. They knew that to unleash new creations upon their domains would spell disaster, so they created the garden. A lush space where the sun never set, where the seasons never changed, where even the most helpless of creatures could thrive. Where there, Dola worked to create life in all its forms. When the god of water had claimed much of the world to create the seas, she had also had him claim parts of the garden, so that she might create life that thrived in his domain, from the shallows to the depths. When the goddess of air and the winds challenged Dola, she set out to create life that could soar through the skies in defiance of her domain. When the god of earth and stone complained about how barren his domain was, she created grasses and trees, flowers and ferns. She painted his brown and gray world green and filled it with creatures to populate it. Thus, Dola finished her circle, but she was not happy, for now that the world had life, the gods were still alone. Dola had created them brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, servants and angels, yet they still stood alone, for none had free will. So Dola decided to give life the gifts of intelligence. In the garden she planted fruits, seeds, and nuts, hidden away, cleverly disguised, challenging life to improve and grow, so that slowly but surely life could grow and evolve until the gods were no longer alone. But even so, life stagnated as the eons passed, and species arose from the ashes of their predecessors, slowly changing but never reaching the heights which she desperately desired. And so Dola created what she wanted, what she truly desired. The firstborn walked the garden, erect on 2 feet, his hands guided by just enough instinct to know where the fruit lay, thirsting for knowledge, for power, for understanding. It ate the seeds and began to see in colors. It ate the roots and began to hear much more clearly. It ate and consumed until at last it reached the fruit none had ever reached before, upon the tallest branches of the tallest trees in the garden. And there it gained awareness, consciousness, intelligence. It had gained a soul and its own will. And he wove the grasses into clothes, sharpened the branches into tools, and carved the stones of the garden into a temple to thank the gods. But it too realized the plight of the gods, the plight of being alone, without equal, surrounded by naught but mindless beasts. It yelled out in frustration at Dola, his mother, for brethren like himself, but his calls went unheeded, for worry had begun clouding her mind, and her firstborn's thoughts were not pure. And the firstborn raged and rampaged across the garden, savaging creatures that wouldn't die in this space, trying to regain her attention. At last he climbed the tallest tree yet again, gathering the fruits that had brought him pain. He walked the garden, commanding the creatures to follow him, until he stood atop the steps of his temple. Behold, the fruit of knowledge. Share in them with me. Leave behind the mindlessness of beasts. Arise, a people. Claim the souls you deserve. He bellowed at the crowd of animals. Foolish creature, who are you to defy the order imposed upon the gods? Who are you to take their place? A black wolf circled around his peers and walked in front of all the beasts, speaking for them. Silence! What right have you to speak back to me, mindless beast? The firstborn shouted, angered by the defiance of those he saw as beneath him. We obey the order of the gods. We refuse your gift. We let their will be done. And with that, the wolf turned around to leave, his brethren and the other beasts facing away from the firstborn, unheeding of his will and his wrath. And so the firstborn struck down the wolves and the bears and great cats, for they had claws and he had weapons. He struck down the falcons and the eagles and the songbirds, for he had arms and stones and they had weak bones. And he struck down the boars, the hares, and the deer, for they knew not danger, and his anger was unleashed. Standing atop the wounded masses, he picked up the fruit of knowledge and opened the mouth of the wolf that had defied him. Let my will be done. And thus the firstborn thrust souls and intelligence into those who were not ready to receive them. The skies darkened, and the first night descended upon the garden, winds howling in anger as roaring thunder thunder clouds formed into thin air. Let my will be done. The bodies of boars and wolves and eagles twitched as rain began falling upon a land that had never known it, as the hosts of the God's angels descended all around him. Let my will be done. And the cries and moans of the creatures turned into the gargled voice of monsters yelling in pain. As the firstborn stood above the wounded, changing masses, his eyes finally gazed upon the angels, servants of the God he so wished to join. And the angels acted as one, as a circle of emissaries around him pointed scores of fingers at his ignominious self, whose will had desecrated this holiest of place. And as their mouths opened, they issued forth the voice of all gods. Let thy will be done. The monsters rose, changed, no longer pure creatures, but corrupted beings who ran off into the night. Let thy will be done. Werewolves streaked their claws across the trees, scarring them, cursing him as they ran from the anger of the gods. Let thy will be done. Orcs ran into swamps to gather iron for tools of war, for their blood cried for vengeance. The firstborn stood alone, surrounded by the celestial host, defiant to the last, as the angel spoke the god's judgment. The earth broke and swallowed the firstborn, sealing him away to where he would never be able to defy the gods again. Dola wept as the gods crafted his prison, carved deep into the earth where none would ever find it. She wept at their cruelty, for his prison was one of mirrors. For all he would ever see from that day forth was his own reflection. Eons passed in the garden, until the day elves arose. The gods were no longer alone. You just wanted me to read that to flex. That was crazy. That was very, very good. That was crazy. Um, I would say the writing here was phenomenal. Um, I have a lot to say. I'm just reading chat right now. I see what Creamy's saying about Too Biblical. I I would agree that this could be taken in the wrong way. Um, I think it is slightly too on the nose. Um, I know what you're doing here, and it's really really good. Um, but I would agree with Creamy that it probably should be dialed back. Um, but other than that, it's very good. Yeah, the writing is phenomenal. Um, get what the scene is doing. I would agree. The writing is very very good. Um, whoops. Yeah, I have nothing else to say other than that. I think it's awesome. So this is going to be like, how are you going to include this in your story? Like, is this something that you're going to actually include in the book itself, or is this just like kind of like bonus information that you're going to have? Basically, the core idea is that Firstborn's prison is the source for magic in the world. Got it. Um, yeah, that's cool. And that's just something that goes very wrong with it. Right. Makes sense. So like, yeah, it's good. How are you going to include it? Is this going to be in between like each chapter, or are you going to like break this down? Like, are you going to do like 20% here, like a quarter of it one chapter, another quarter of another chapter, or are you going to include something this like complex before each chapter? This is. It does seem very long. Was it? Oh, okay. I can't. Okay, so this one just specifically seems to be a lot. Got you. Well, all in all, I think it's incredible. Your writing is so good here. The imagery is awesome. I do think it's probably a little bit too on the nose for the biblical references. Like, I think you can do. Like, I almost am a little disappointed that it's so similar. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you could easily make this a little bit. Like, I get what you're doing with keeping it similar, but at the same time, I think like you could make it less so. I think what Kareem was saying earlier about the like dial it back like 20%. I think that might work better for you. But I don't know. That's just my opinion. But the impact is there. Like the idea of like the garden and the fruit of knowledge is already perfect with like the biblical tie-ins. And I feel like you don't necessarily have to go more than that. Um, hmm, maybe not. I'm just kind of rereading some of it. Honestly, Viking, I take that back. I think it's good. I think it's good. I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it. Okay, so uh yeah, that was awesome. That was part of chapter 2. Is this whole thing all of chapter 2, Viking? You got like 68 pages here. I liked it. Yeah, I liked it too, Jeffrey. Yeah. This could be like 5 chapters. I know, I agree, Struggo. I call them scenes, but anyone else free. Okay. Oh, I see. I see what you're doing. Fifth of fourth, fifth of. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I see how you formatted this. So these are the chapters in chapter 2. Okay, I see. Yep. All right. Okay, awesome. So, um, yeah, keep writing. Keep writing, Viking. I'm really curious to see where this is going. I'm gonna move on to Jeffrey's, to Jay's work. Um, Jay, what am I reading from you? Let you find it. You're not ready? Okay, while she finds it, I'm gonna go grab a glass of water. I'll be right back. Really? Evangelion was so good, except for the end. It was so confusing. And Shinji was annoying. I found Shinji so annoying. Anyway, this sort of intermission, yeah or nay? I really like it. I thought it was awesome. You could even do that, like that in its own could have just been its own, like your own work. Like that kind of stuff, I could see you doing your story, like publishing. Let's say you publish your story to RR Royal Road. You could like include that in your Patreon or something. Like it was really really good. I watched all of Evangelion before 9/11. Don't get me started, dude. Yeah, I liked it. I did enjoy it. It was definitely very strange. That ending, man. Oof. All right, let's go, Jay. What are we waiting for? Back to the music. In the meantime. Yes, Viking. Yes, nailed it, brother. I mean, I like the biblical references. Um, I don't know. I think it did feel slightly too on the nose. That, but like I couldn't find a good example. Like that was just my vibe. But the writing was amazing. All right, Jay, let's go. Where you at? Oh, she's back. All right. My writing in color basis still feels. I mean, it is pretty incredible. Here it is. Did you send it to me? Did you DM me or you put it in the whip? You said the whole. All right. How many words is this? Okay. 3K words. Okay, sounds good. I'm gonna read this. Jay, how much do you want me? Do you want feedback on the story, or you just want me to read it? Would you rather like? What's your goal? Cat. Just read impressions. Okay. Sure. Have fun. Hi, Kat. Good morning. I'm so sorry. I skipped you in the reading list because you weren't here, but you're going back to the number one spot. Good to see you. Okay. I'm gonna zoom in here. How's that? Winter Soldier stuff, of course. I'm gonna pause this. Here we go. So this is Jay's story. It is a fan fiction for the Winter Soldier. Supernaturally cooked and stuff. Ooh, I'm excited. Okay, here we go. 2011. The soldier has wow. I'm just immediately flubbed the whole thing. I'm sorry. Pretend I didn't do that. The soldier has his back flush against a tree, his face pale as snow. Rumlow is pressed against his left side, the soldier's metal shoulder digging into his own. The soldier doesn't care. The terror that courses through his blood bites at his jugular, and he feels like he can't breathe. He can't. He bites his lip so hard that it starts to bleed. It is grounding. Rumlow is trembling. The soldier can feel it against his arm, and he licks his lips to get rid of the blood. Iron floods his tongue. Iron floods his tongue the way it floods the air around them, seeping into the little cracks in the mountains. The soldier wants to throw up. I feel sick, he whispers. A tinge of Russian laces his voice, the way it always does when emotion broils against the inside of his chest. Yeah, big guy, Rumlow hisses back. His voice shakes. I do too. Red streaks the grass beneath them, the color splattered across their boots and knees. Poppy petals, the soldier thinks, almost hysterically as he glances downwards. It looks like a meadow of poppies. If it weren't for the minuscule bits of meat freckling the blood, it would almost be beautiful. His stomach turns and he looks away again. Soldier, Rumlow says, breathless. Yes? Do you still hear it? The soldier cocks his head, his hair brushing against his neck as he does so. The movement against his skin almost makes him jump out of himself, and his heart screams in his chest, clenching fists around his ribcage and shaking. It hurts. He pants. Get a grip, Rumlow growls, shooting out a hand to clasp the soldier's left. His own heart is beating so hard that the soldier can feel his pulse through his palm. The soldier swallows. I think it's gone. You think? I'm not sure. Then get sure, Rumlow grits out. He lets go of the soldier's metal wrist and readjusts his grip on his Sig Sauer. His hands are trembling, and it draws the soldier's attention to them. He stares at them for a whole minute, the world slowing around him, the pendulum of passing time ticking along to his racing heartbeat. Tick, tick, tick. He wants to bury himself underground, wants to die rather than face it again. Soldier, Rumlow's voice is sharp, angry, frightened. Get sure. The order runs through the soldier and he grits his teeth. He cannot refuse. He must not. And yet his entire body feels like stone, paralyzed. His boots have struck root and tearing them up and into movement seems impossible. You are coming with me, he tells Rumlow. Forces his body to shift, forces life into his limbs again. He feels atrophied with terror, and it takes all his strength to get himself moving. We're going together. Rumlow protests, but the soldier grasps his lapels and swings them both out and around the tree trunk. Rumlow's gun veers wildly from side to side as he scans the woods with wide eyes, the whites showing, his forehead lathered in sweat, a wild stallion. The soldier isn't much better, and he has nearly shredded his bottom lip to bits with the force he bites down on it to keep himself from making a sound. Blood dribbles down his chin, unnoticed. I don't see anything, Rumlow breathes, yet he doesn't holster his pistol. The soldier doesn't reply. Something has caught his eye and raises his face towards it. A keening sound starts up, deep below the earth, echoing around them, bouncing off the trees and deep into their chests. Blood freezes in the soldier's veins as he spots it. It had hidden itself, waiting for them. An ambush. It was clever. Agent, he rasps. Run. He doesn't have to speak twice, and they burst into action, crashing through the trees, and the low keening morphs into a haunting wail. The soldier is blinded. He doesn't know if it is him making the sound, but he doesn't care. He drags Rumlow along, the other man barely keeping up with his pace. They run, and the wailing howls, and the sun crashes its face into the earth, the moon crawling up on its belly into the darkening skies. They run for what seems like years, their lungs screaming. Rumlow stumbles. He isn't nearly as strong as the soldier, and the soldier pulls him up. There are pearls of blood along the side of Rumlow's face where the branches have caught in his skin. The soldier is certain he looks the same. The woods are silent. Rumlow's knees give out in the soldier's grasp, and he crumbles to the floor, swaying slightly in his position. He looks ready to pass out, and sure enough he does after a beat or two. The soldier moves him so that he is leaning up against a tree trunk, and he sits down beside him, chest heaving painfully. He feels faint himself, his head swimming with a startling lack of oxygen. Stars peek through the leaves ahead, and he turns his eyes upwards, counting them over and over again. Moonlight filters through the trees, and the blood that has started to dry in both of them looks almost black, dark, haunting. It is the end of the beginning, and the congealing blood seals the fact in, a metallic tinged promise. 2024. Bucky spots him at once. He is seated at the far end of the rundown bar just outside of Illinois in a booth back to the door. The scarring on his neck stands out in the dim lighting of thick and coiling. Alcohol tinges the air, blending into the smell of sweat, and the lights are dim, dark, shadowy. The clattering of glasses and chatter fills the building to the brim, and Bucky wades through the chaos towards the lone man. Rumlow looks up at him when he slides into the seat opposite of him. His face doesn't betray any expressions of surprise. He is expecting him. Bucky says nothing, eyes tracing the scars that run up and down Rumlow's face for a moment. They'd faded to a snowy white, and Bucky thinks they look almost like veins on the outside of his body. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a newspaper clipping, pushes it across the table towards Rumlow. Rumlow doesn't take it. He doesn't scan the contents, doesn't glance at the picture of the cleared crime scene. Body found, heart missing, in Kentucky mountains. Dog-earing the edges of the clipping absently, Rumlow raises his eyes to meet Bucky's. His eyes are bright with what Bucky doesn't quite know. He hopes it's guilt. It's it, isn't it? Bucky nods silently, looks away into the bar. Low jazz plays through the tinny speakers, dancing through the air lightly, somehow reaching them over the noise. The pretty sound too gentle to be breathing the same air as them. Murderers, violent men, opposites sat on either side of a table. He turns his gaze back to Rumlow. I want to kill you. I know, Rumlow says calmly. He folds the newspaper twice into a square and slips it into his coat's breast pocket, standing up. Vodka? Neat. Watching Rumlow head over to order drinks. Bucky lets his hand drop to his side, fingers playing with the strap on his holster. Sig Sauer's body against him is soothing, a comfort. He has no illusions about Rumlow being unarmed. He knew what he would see if the holster that is no doubt hidden beneath the other man's jacket became exposed. The exact same modified Sig Sauer. I'm saying that word wrong. I apologize if I am. He realizes with a jolt that he doesn't want Rumlow to see his own pistol. It is a private thing to modify it in the same way he knows Rumlow has, a thing he doesn't quite know himself why he'd done it. He forces his hands up and onto the table, away from the gun, and stares at his gloves. They are black, dark, like a headband. Bucky swallows. Rumlow sits back in the booth, breaking Bucky out of his thoughts, slides the vodka across the table, and Bucky shoots out of his right hand to stop it. The clear liquid sloshes around in the glass. Bucky looks up at Rumlow, raises the glass to his lips. The vodka feels familiar against Bucky's throat, biting. Rumlow had ordered whiskey, just like he always used to. A neat vodka and a whiskey on rocks, like the old days. Bucky feels ill. I hate you. I know. You hurt me, Bucky says quietly. His voice sounds almost plaintive. He doesn't care. If this had been Zemo, he would have schooled his expression. But this isn't Zemo. This is Rumlow. Rumlow, who'd seen him at his worst, who'd seen him half naked and shivering post-wipe, who'd seen him piss himself in the throes of seizures, seen him throw up blood after one too many battens to his stomach. If anybody deserves to see what exactly his time at Hydra had done to him, it is Rumlow. He deserves to see what he's done. Bucky wants to grab him by the collar and scream in his face. Look what you've done to me. He stays seated. Rumlow backs his drink, shakes his head once, getting ready to bite. I'm sorry. It doesn't change a thing. I know. He's starting to sound like a broken record, skipping over the same hitch in the disc, and Bucky looks him straight in the eye. You will help me. Then I will shoot you. Rumlow blinks at him. He looks tired. Okay. They load Bucky's bike into the back of Rumlow's Toyota, fixing it in place with a length of cord. It's cold out. The stars shine bright in the part of the U.S., and Bucky lifts his face toward the light that freckles the sky softly. It is beautiful, calming, and as he climbs into the passenger seat of the truck and Rumlow turns the key in the ignition, he keeps his eyes trained upon them, like a sailor gripping onto an anchor, a lifeline. You still don't wear a helmet, Rumlow says, and despite himself, Bucky huffs at a humorless laugh. That's what concerns you? Rumlow shrugs. Just an observation. Yeah, where were those observational skills back when... Bucky's voice cracks and he clears his throat, turns his face toward the window. Back when... Rumlow doesn't say anything, gives Bucky a long look and releases the handbrake, turning the truck around. Tires spin lightly on old tarmac and the smell of sweet Midwestern air brushes its way through the open windows. They drive in silence for a while. The night swallows them whole, her maw dark and unforgiving. Stars still shine and Bucky doesn't look at Rumlow. You've done well for yourself, soldier, Rumlow says quietly, around 2 hours in. Mountains loom in the distance, their silhouettes large, dark behemoths in the moonlight. If it isn't because Rumlow is driving, Bucky would have slammed him into a wall, maybe shot him in the knee for good measure. As it is, Rumlow is driving, and despite what his therapist thinks, Bucky is not suicidal. He isn't. He'd been an assassin for many, many years. He knows how to wait. Bucky grits his teeth. I'm not the soldier anymore. A beat, then. And who are you now? My name is James Bucky Barnes, and I am no longer the Winter Soldier. He rattles off. The words feel strange in his mouth, and if they aren't his, as if they aren't his. In a way, they're not. He's been told to say them, and right now it is easier to do as he's been told than to not think too hard about who he is. It is a paper shield, bound to tear apart at some time. Now is not that time. Rumlow gives him a strange look. Sounds awfully rehearsed. Bucky doesn't grace Rumlow with an answer. He knows it's rehearsed, damn it, he knows. Coming up with the right words on the fly is difficult, and he is fully aware of why. But by God, is it infuriating to have it pointed out by the same person who saw him scream and under the pain of electroshock and did nothing. His fingers twitch. Rumlow notices, doesn't comment, and turns his eyes back to the road. Silence wraps itself over their shoulders, heavy, smothering, and the mountains in the distance grow larger with every passing mile. They stop at a gas station about 100 miles into the heart of Kentucky. The smell of pine seeps into the cracks in Bucky's mind, lulling him slightly. His shoulders ache, and it is only when Rumlow turns the engine off and slams the driver's door shut behind him that he realizes he's been flexing his muscles tight, bracing himself. For what, he doesn't know, and he clenches his jaw for a moment, letting his muscles jump in his cheeks. Rumlow raps his knuckles on the passenger window. You hungry? Bucky undoes his seatbelt, opens the door. Rumlow steps back in slightly, and Bucky takes the chance, leaping out of the truck and slamming his former partner up the gas tanks, a vibranium hand wrapped around his neck. Rumlow's pulse jumps and his pupils blow out with a sudden rush of adrenaline. Bucky can feel his heart beat in his jugular. You know what I can do, he murmurs then, leaning his face in towards Rumlow's ear. Call me soldier one more time, and I'll do worse than that. He all but throws Rumlow to the side, and Rumlow blinks rapidly as oxygen flows back in his head in a rush. Bucky turns away, doesn't look back as he stalks over to the little shop at the back of the station. It is a forest green, a gentle, soft color, soothing. It blends into the dark trees behind it, and Bucky wants to disappear along with it. A neon sign flickers sadly, the lettering spelling open in bright blue, red, and white. The bell that is strung above the door tinkles when he turns the rusting knob. Nobody is at the till. The shop smells of cheap rose air freshener and faintly. It is decently stocked, however, and Bucky seethes privately as he goes up and down the aisles, scanning the contents. The bell tinkles again, and Rumlow enters the shop. He eyes Bucky warily, and Bucky absurdly feels like baring his teeth at the man, grabs a ready-made sandwich from the cooler instead, goes to the till, and ignores Rumlow, who comes up behind him, his own sandwich in hand. There's nobody here? Rumlow asks. His voice is rough, scratchy, and his neck is red where Bucky had pressed his left hand into it. Clearly not. Check the back. Bucky gives him a dirty look at the subtle command, but he is quite suddenly and inexplicably tired. His outburst had taken most of his anger away, and all that is left is exhaustion. Setting his sandwich down on the counter by the till, he goes to check the back. Boxes line the back room in all different colors and sizes, and there is a door leading to the outside, wide open. Countryside air fills the room, lovingly, and yet the faint smell of dog grows stronger. Hello? Something moves in the darkness outside, and Bucky barely has time to react before a large, rusty red coonhound bounds into him, wagging its tail at 100 miles per hour. Whoa, he yelps, pushing the dog downwards as it leaps up against his chest in excitement. Honey eyes stare at him with such dog-like trust that Bucky feels somewhat faint. Hey, boy. Another flurry of movement, and a young, skinny kid, no older than 20, scurries inside, snuffing a cigarette against the wall. He grabs the dog by the scruff of its neck. Tilly, down! The dog sits, its entire rump wiggling as it wags its tail. Sorry, the kid sounds breathless, and a creeping flush spreads across his cheeks. You want to pay? Yeah. Okay, right. Bucky follows the kid into the store, leaving the dog behind, and Rumlow raises his eyebrows at the sight of fur all over Bucky's front. Bucky scowls at him, and Rumlow pulls out his wallet, pays for both of them. Sorry about Tilly, the kid says as Bucky goes to leave. Don't worry about it, she's a beautiful dog. The kid beams in delight, and he wishes them a good day as Rumlow tugs open the door. The bell tinkles above them. Dogs? Again? Rumlow asks when they pull down the back of the truck to sit on. as they pull down the back of the truck to sit on. I like dogs. It sounds almost offensive, and Rumlow blinks. I know you do. And it is 2000. It is 2009 all over again. And Bucky is a soldier, and their dog gets splayed all over the floor. His breath catches in his chest, and he heaves, hunching over. Bile stings at his nose, and oh God, the smell of sticky, sweet blood fills his lungs. He throws up over and over again, the vomit scratching its way up his throat, digging nails into his esophagus, tearing it to shreds, and shrieks of red line the ground. Shrieks of dog. She bled so prettily, so red-like. So innocently, her cries dying into fading whimpers as they held the soldier back, made him watch, made him. Big guy, easy, someone is saying, and there is a hand rubbing small circles onto his back. Bucky blinks back to the present, his eyes flitting around frantically. He scrambles upwards away from Rumlow. They killed her, he whispers hoarsely and presses a hand to his mouth. They killed her. I know, I'm sorry, Rumlow says, and for once Bucky believes him. He tried, Rumlow had. He tried to let him keep the dog. He remembers it vividly, and he runs his hands through his hair, gritting his teeth. Stop saying that. Okay? Just stop. Rumlow raises his hands, appeasing, and backs away slightly. They stand at an impasse for a moment before Bucky lets out a shaky sigh and hops into the back of the truck. Just give me my damn sandwich. Moonlight spills down on the truck, bounces off the metal, bounces off Bucky's left hand. He'd taken his gloves off somewhere between here and there. Bucky stares at the light for a moment, then turns his face to the mountains. His heart skips a beat. There's something unnerving about the stillness of them, the never-moving solidness, and, for the first time in a while, he feels a flicker of animalistic skittishness sink into his bones. It is there. It is waiting. And here they are, driving right towards it. Whoa! All right. Okay, Jay, that was really good. Yeah, your imagery was really good. The vibe is really good. I rather enjoyed that for a fan fiction. What do you guys think? I missed so much. You guys are talking like crazy in here. I'm not going to read all of your chat. I'm just scanning through. Danko, hi. Hi, Serena. You finally made it in time for the reading part. That's fun. Yeah, so I thought the vibe of it is good. I'm kind of disappointed we didn't get to see the monster or whatever it is. Hi, Shelby. Missed it. Had to discipline my dog for peeing on the floor earlier. Your dog, did your dog even remember that it happened? It gives erotica vibes. Can't ping on what. Just be mindful. In the very beginning, I don't know if I would agree with Mita on that. I don't know. So I would say, in my impression as a reader, and I do not read fan fiction, like, pretty much ever. I'm not big on fan fiction either. Wow, literally, Fluorescent just took the words right out of my head. The story is complete. Okay, one sec. Give me a second. So, as somebody who does not read fan fiction, and somebody who isn't necessarily like a huge fan of the Winter Soldier, I will say that the beginning I really, really liked. I think I'm actually very impressed with your writing at the first half. This 2011 scene, where like they're hiding from whatever's chasing them. Awesome. Really enjoyed that. I was a little bored in here, but I think it's more just my lack of interest in Bucky as a character, because I know what you're trying to do. You right, like he's traumatized and he's dealing with his past, and that's like Bucky Barnes now instead of him as the Winter Soldier. I get it. That was just my impression, the vibe that I felt. Like this bar scene, I felt a little bit bored. But then when he kind of got upset with Rumlow and his kind of flashback to the dog. I thought that was all really good. All in all, I enjoyed it. Story jumps between, yes. I just find, yeah, writing is decent. Why write fan fiction? No offense, just curious. Well, apparently, Jay is potentially going to work on a new story. That's what she said before. Um, I'm old, so I don't know much about fan fiction. um, Also, I have one piece of feedback for you, Jay, if you will hear it. And you can deny it. It's criticism. If you don't want to hear it, then that's okay. Okay. Um, I think your dialogue can be better. I don't really like. I think in your style of writing, it's so focused on Bucky as a character, right? It's a character driven story. It's character driven writing. Yeah, I struggle with dialogue. Um, that's funny. So you already knew what I was gonna say. I just have a feeling as I'm writing it that I just like I can't really get into Bucky's head or feel what he's feeling because of the dialogue. The dialogue honestly is taking me out of it, and I think if you can just work on the dialogue, it will be much better. But other than that, it was good. I enjoyed it. I knew it.